I'll make it 11 o'clock or just a few seconds before, so I think now's a good time to make a start. So welcome everyone. I'm Olivia from DIA, and a lot of you, we've been speaking to you more recently and over the years, and so lovely to have so many of you on here today. There's an awful lot of you that registered and are still signing up at the moment, so that's so fantastic. And first and foremost, from all of us, we hope you're all well, healthy, and during these strange times, and just keeping yourselves positive as you can. Very difficult. What we'll be doing, which was only arranged about an hour ago, is we are doing a webinar next Friday as well, even Good Friday. So we'll be doing that for about risk management, not just on road, but different areas of your professional career as well. So business and everything that you can think of, really. And there'll be a small team of us, myself, Howard, and our CEO, Carly, as well on there. So what we will also be doing, so that'll be next Friday. So the joining instructions are on diaacademy.co.uk, where you found these ones. We're also next Thursday, 11 o'clock, we are hoping to run a webinar about mindfulness. Very different to what we normally do, but we just thought, everyone might need a little bit of this at the moment to help them through. So there's some more information on the mindfulness will be going out very shortly, probably today or over the weekend. So it'd be great if you can sign up. That might be a little bit of a shorter webinar than usual, maybe about 30 minutes or so. But it'll be just great. And we'll be joined by a lady called Tor, who is a mindfulness trainer, and very, very clever lady in all of these things, very qualified to do the session with us. And so we'll be joined by her, which is very good, very exciting. We hope to work with her in the future with some more things for you as well, just to kind of look after your health and well-being as well as your professional career. So let's have a little look at what we'll be covering in today's session. So staying in touch with the pupils. How can I keep my pupils engaged during the coronavirus, COVID-19? Looking at different ways of utilising technology, and we'll be looking at some online rules and some etiquette, because that will need to be considered, and looking at engaging the parents as well. So that's they're obviously sitting there at home with your pupils, so we're going to sort of look at that and some thinking around that as well. So staying in touch with the pupils, I mean, it's all such strange times for us all, and what we want to do is make sure our pupils are feeling as if they are still in touch with us. We're still out there, we're still there for them. We've built a great rapport with them over the years, or over the months. We say years, it might be that you've been training certain members of a certain family for a long time. That often happens. So and you, especially for new pupils as well, that maybe haven't worked with you quite as long, you just want to reassure them that, hey, look, even though we can't work together face to face, I'm still there and I can still help support your learning. So that's so important to do. We need to have a good level of familiarity in order to have some kind of routine. We've all been pulled out of our usual daily routine. We rely on our routine. We're happy with our routines in the main, but when we don't have anything to do as such anymore, then that makes us feel very, can make us feel very insecure and anxious. So if we have that level of familiarity there, so there's that constant, well, not constant, but an agreed contact with your pupils, to have that just touching base with them. That's what we're saying. Good for mental well-being for both you and them, as we were saying, making sure that you are having some level of routine and familiarity in your lives, and also for your pupils as well. And a good tip, keep to similar times that you would have been seeing them anyways, and so they reserve that time for their learning. I think that's quite important. If you've got pupils, and loads of you will have more like a regular slot during the week for their lesson, keep that, so they keep that in mind. That's their driving, that's their learning, so they're keeping you in mind with that time every week. And again, a lot of you would have thought of this already. A lot of you will be doing this already. But, you know, this is just an idea sharing session to give you some thoughts and guidance around if you wanted to look into any of this a bit further. So having a little look at this slide here. So out of challenging times comes innovation. It's very true. So many people are finding that because they're in such difficult circumstances, as a lot of us are, if not all of us, people are having to find ways to get through, find ways to carry on as much as they can. So doing a theory session with pupils, I know that can be have its challenges at the best of times, because pupils are often focused on the practical side. And so if we say to our pupils, hey, you know, I'd like you to go and read this, then, you know, we know that there's probably a decent chance that they might not. But at this moment in time, they've got a bit more time on their hands. Hopefully a lot of them are, you've seen all the great work all the teachers and educators are doing to keep them engaged with their school curriculum. You too are educators in one of the biggest life skills that they're going to learn, which is their driving. So it's equally as important that we as ADIs keep in touch with them as well. So as we see from this one, all theory underpins all the practical stuff that they do in the car. So this is a good idea to focus them on certain areas that maybe they've been having some working on recently in the car with you, maybe some development issues that they might have had some, you know, issues with that last time you saw them. You had spoken to them at the end of that lesson that, hey, we're going to set the goal for doing X on the, you know, the next time we see you. Next thing we know, we're all in lockdown. So that lesson never happened. So that's something to go back as maybe as a starting point, as a basis, if you're unsure as to how to kind of approach this. So it's a great time to spend that time with them to look at the theory, because as that last bullet point, a lot of you will probably recognize that, and you feel that because we can feel that pressure sometimes from the pupils, sometimes from the parents, or from any other people that are involved in that training, that if we having to sit and spend some time to explain things and discuss things at the side of the road, so a few people don't often realize, and they don't value that learning. You know, I'm paying you to teach me to drive, and I expect you to you know, us to do some practical sessions. And myself as an ADI, I've been on the receiving end of that as well, when sometimes what you need to do is to point them to learning resources, or to, you know, get them to go through things. And as we know, it's very difficult to be able to do that with some people. So if we've got this time, and you've got the time there where you can make some online learning up, or you can, even if it's just a simple call or an email, that will be a really great thing to do to help deepen that understanding with the theory around why they're having a problem with whatever they're having a problem with. So for example, this is quite a common one, and you'll probably most of you relate to this one. So pupil is having trouble with, as they approach a junction, give way, let's say, they are not slowing down, or having difficulties when and how much to slow down, to start slowing down. That can be quite common. As we say, coming to the end of the road, at the end of the road we'll be turning right, so we're coming up to a T junction, perhaps a give way. They'll check their mirrors really well, they do the signal, and then the position speed doesn't kind of happen, and then we're finding we're having to intervene. So I'm just using that as a basis. So obviously first we need to understand what the issue is, and how that they prefer to learn. So when doing this remotely, point them to further reading is the first, or one of the first things that we can think of. As we've been saying, now they've got a bit more time to do this now. They will all be still doing their schoolwork, I believe, to as much as they can. And as we're saying, the teachers doing a great job of all the online learning that they've been getting them to do. But they won't be going out seeing their friends and doing all the things that they would do normally. They might be spending a bit more time on the old Xbox or PlayStation, but they do have more disposable time to devote to their learning. And again, if you keep that frequency there, so it's a similar time every week, so that time is sort of reserved in their mind, that's the time that they develop on their driving. You can discuss this over the phone, so you don't, if you're a little bit worried about the tech, then you don't have to go full on tech. You discuss it. A simple phone call is always good, or you can go a little bit further and do maybe a video call with them. So we'll look at that in a moment. In terms of getting them when to slow down, when we're in the car, we often give them a distance in car lengths, or I've put on there a tennis court, something. I was just thinking of, an idea of space and time, something they'll understand, and tell them to look at this when they're next in the car as a passenger. So if we're not all supposed to go out and family outings and all the rest of it, that's against the rules at the moment. But if they are out in the car as a passenger, perhaps for whatever reason, obviously they need to have a good one, or even walking as a pedestrian. Walking obviously gives you a very different sense of space and time, because you think, oh, if this seems too early. If you're walking along the road and walking towards a junction on the pavement, you'd be thinking this is far too early to be braking. But obviously traveling in a car, you're traveling a lot quicker. So it might be something simple like that. You might need to just point out to them so they understand, to get that different way of thinking. Get them to observe how others drive and how it feels. So if they are still maybe taking public transport, maybe they are still taking the bus, if they need to. How is the driver driving? Are they braking when they should be braking? Well, they feel they should be braking. Do they feel that it's a bit late, a bit sudden, a bit jerky, or is it nice and smooth and that makes them feel sort of quite comfortable, and they're not going to spill their drink, that type of thing. So ways that they can be a bit more kind of present and in the moment, and thinking about other examples that they can use from other areas of their life to try and work out when's the best time to be braking. So it's all a bit, it's just ideas that we're throwing out there today. And again, you guys are experts in doing what you do, and all of this is probably nothing particularly new to you or new at all, but they're just a few ideas to be thinking in this particular context that we're in. So just continuing on this late braking issue, you might go out and send them a photo if it's in your local area. If you happen to be taking a walk, because we're allowed to have one walk a day, and you've got your phone or something like that, you took a picture of a particular junction that Bob was having an issue with, then you might then say, hey, got this picture. I might send it to them or share it with them and say, this is that junction, so let's have a little talk about that. So you could do that as a phone call. You could do it as a different, a video conferencing or something like that. If you have a dash cam, you could download a bit of video footage that they can view and talk them through when you started braking and why you started braking at that time. What we're not saying to you now is to go out and create a whole video library of putting your dash cam in your car and going out to deliberately film this, because that isn't allowed. We're not supposed to be doing that. But if you have footage from before where maybe you were driving between a lesson, and you could potentially use something like that as a little bit of live footage to help them. People love a bit of video. So I've put in there as well of when you were driving alone in the car, so making sure perhaps that this is not and it's only a forward-facing camera. This is not anything that you should be sharing from another pupil or lesson. I'm sorry to say that, guys. I know I don't want to sound so obvious, and I know you all know that, but just to share that if in case anyone is very new to this, and I was, you know, just thinking in the back of their mind, I wonder if I could share that. No, don't do that, because obviously that's breaching GDPR. So this would need to be something perhaps where on safe ground where you are driving, and just bear in mind background noise as well, you know, so mute the sound if you can, or something like that. So discuss the risks of late braking, other risks at that time. So if you've got different, you could look at things that this junction, which we're having trouble with at the moment, you could change the context around that junction. So it could be you are looking at a loose road surface, wet leaves, wet road, the depth of the tyre tread. So bring the show me, tell me theory into it. All those sorts of things. You know, what type of road surface are we expecting during the springtime? Because we're in that time now. How would it change coming up to that junction in the summer, the autumn, the winter? So different times of year, get them thinking about the same area, but with a different context surrounding that. It helps them to, when they pass with you, hopefully in the summer or autumn, as it may be now, then when we come into winter, they've got some knowledge there, they've got some learning there as well, even if they can't continue learning with you at that point, or they don't. A little bit at the bottom there. So as I've mentioned, if you are going to use a bit of your dash cam footage, making sure it's facing forwards and ensuring there are no other pupils running present for data protection reasons. So again, as I've mentioned, think about any sound in the background. So if you're singing along at the top of your voice to your best tunes, that's great, but maybe not in this context. So maybe mute the sound if possible. Another thing you could do, and you could do this over an email, you could this over a over a phone call and an email. You could also do this over, probably work best over a video call, but there are other ways. You know, just get creative, let your imagination help you with this. Jointly create a mind map. Mind map is the whole spider diagram thing. So in the center of a page, we would agree on a lesson goal. We would then discuss, well, how do we achieve that lesson goal? So we would then have that discussion with the pupil. We would get them to input all the different aspects. So if we're coming using our junction, approaching that T junction, for example, as an example, then in the middle, you might put approaching T junctions, or you might break the goal down into the area that they're having trouble with, which is when to slow down and how much to slow down by. So you'd put when to slow and how much by. That could be your goal in the center. Draw that in the center of your page, write that down, put a little circle around it, and now you'd have a discussion with them to say, okay, so when would you start to brake? What would affect the braking time? So that is things like your speed and the weather and your road conditions and things like that, other traffic around you. So you start asking them some questions, and some open-ended questions, the what, when, why, how, when, those type of questions that they can't answer easily yes or no to. And you start putting like little legs out and another little circle with one of their suggestions in it. So you're kind of turning this into like a little spider diagram. It's also known as a mind map. So these mind maps went a little bit crazy a few years ago when we changed over from the check test to the standards check, and everyone was going mind map crazy. But they are a good tool, and they might be a good way of kind of getting your pupil to think through a particular issue that they've been having. It could be a really useful tool for that, especially at the moment. I know a lot of you do these anyway, and a lot of you will do them in the car. That's great, but this gives you the opportunity to spend maybe a little bit more time diving a bit deeper into things, and getting them to think a little bit more broadly, because we don't have that pressure of I want to get driving in a minute. So that's something for you to consider. So you could each have, if you're going to have like maybe be on video, you could each have a sheet of paper and a pen. You agree the goal with them, as we've just discussed, what you want them to achieve. You could start by drawing the goal on your bit of paper, get them to copy it and then have a discussion around it. You could have a mind map already made up on something different, so you're not giving them the answers. The idea of a mind map is that you want to kind of dig for their knowledge, dig for their understanding. So it's kind of an assessment tool in a way. You want them to present to you what they already know. You might need to give them some, as I say, open-ended questions with a bit of a nudge. You might need to rephrase the question a bit so they understand that, you know, they hear it in a slightly different way, but you're asking the same thing as we do in the car. So what we're doing is transferring those in-car skills into this. And so what we're saying to you guys is you've got so much of these tools and things at your disposal, this knowledge that you've already possessed. It's just using it in a slightly different way in this context. So as I say, you could have a mind map already made up to say, hey guys, hold it up to the camera. Oh, this is a mind map of XYZ. It could be anything. And so that could be, say, this is the sort of thing that we want to create. And then you would then go and create your own one with them. I understand that some of you have got some questions and you're asking those. If it's okay, and this is anything really urgent in DIA team in the background that needs answering now, would it be okay if we maybe pop to your questions towards the end? Sorry, that was my fault. I didn't say that at the beginning. I usually do go through a few ground rules. Would that be okay? If that can, and we'll certainly come back and answer all of those and address all of your queries. Howard, do chip in and tell me if there's anything particularly burning now that we need to go through now. If you stay quiet, then I'll assume that we can go through that at the end. Okay.
We're okay at the moment.
You're okay at the moment? Okay.
Yeah, at the moment we're fine.
Thank you for your questions, guys and girls. Lovely that you're asking, so do keep them coming. So carrying on, if you do have a small whiteboard, and a lot of you do, you might normally use it in the car with your favorite marker pen, use that to write on, you know, so it's just using resources that you might already have. This is a great opportunity as well to point them to other resources such as the national standards. We go on about the national standards a lot, and we do that for a reason. They are such an important set of documents. There's national standards for, like the ones here, cars and light vans, for category B vehicles. So those are for drivers, they're for trainers, they're for novice drivers, experienced drivers of cars and light vans in that category. So they are something which you need to point them to as a resource. If you need a little bit of a refresh on them yourselves, then just go on to gov.uk, type in national standards for cars and light vans, have a little look through at what those are on there, so you could use that as a basis. Now let me show you, for example, hopefully you can all still see what I'm doing. So on gov.uk at the top here, you can see, mind all my tabs and all my, I have had a look and there's nothing, no crown jewels on show. You can see, so all boring stuff. So this is the national standards for cars and light vans, and this is, I'm using the gov.uk website at the moment. So what the standards for, so it shows you knowledge, skills and understanding, safe and responsible driver of a car or light van. And it sets out exactly what's needed to drive safely, responsibly, makes clearer what's needed to train, test and assess drivers. So how the standards set out, so it's split into roles, units and elements, and then there are performance standards and knowledge and understanding requirements. So it all sounds a bit, if you've not looked at these before, you think, oh my God, that sounds a bit heavy, but actually it's not. So if you start looking at them in a bit more detail, then it should all become clear. So who the standard applies to. So this is something, a document that you can use when speaking with your pupils, maybe the parents as well, as we'll come to in a minute, that you can use to say, look, this is who it applies to. We've talked about types of road at different times and different weather conditions with the different changing of seasons as well. So it will talk about that. This is who can use the standard. So there's a list there of who it mainly applies to. It's particularly useful for drivers, trainers, driving schools, employers, and etc. So that's something which we urge you all to go and have a little look at. There are also standards, don't forget, for driver and rider trainers. So you would go up here and you would go to national standards for driver and rider training, type that in, or you could type it in down here, search on gov.uk, or just type it into Google and go through there as well. So the standards for driver and rider training, I know a lot of you on here know these backwards and forwards and inside out. Some of you might not be so familiar. Get familiar with them now. This is a perfect opportunity. If you're not, I would do that now to ensure that you know what is expected of you in your role as a professional trainer, whether you're a driver or a rider trainer, because it's for motorcycle trainers as well, and go through and have a little look and explore. We're still here at DIA, so if you've got any questions about any of this, drop us an email. No problems at all. support@driving.org is the email for anything like this, or your COVID-19 questions or anything like that. So support@driving.org. So you can always go on there, or you can go on to our DIA driving.org website /help, and then you can fill out your own help form on there, and that will come through to us as well. So if you've got questions around those, then ask. A lot of it, when you go through it, shouldn't surprise you. You should be pretty good with all of that content. But if you did have a little query, never be afraid to ask it. Now's an excellent time to go through this. So first of all, make sure you're up to date, and then pass this message through to your pupils as well.
May I add, please?
Yes.
I'd like to say to all of you that one experiment I did when these first came out and I had my driving school was to teach the kids to the national standards. So they went for their tests, but when they passed their test and they had their test pass certificates, obviously when they went for their jobs, on their CV it had a clean current driving license, but I also got them to put on there, taught to national driving standards. There's an awful lot of people out in industry who don't know what they are, so it engages a question in the interview and it helps that student to be remembered. Because if they are trained to the national driving standards, that makes them a much lower risk to any company who wants them to drive for work. Now, that might seem a bit strange for me to say that, but if an employer sees someone who is trained to a higher standard and they're driving to a standard set by a government body, they're automatically going to assume that they are a less risk than someone who hasn't been. And these companies don't want to buy risk. They want to buy people in who are not so much of a risk, and therefore there's a better chance of that student getting the job. Now, I experimented with this about 2 years, just before I closed my driving school down. And out of the people I told them to put on the CVs, I'd say about 45% came back to me and said, yes, I was particularly questioned over this, and it did create dialogue. And it's got to be an advantage to them. So if you can learn what all these standards are saying and use them in your driving, make a matrix up. So when you're doing all your progress sheets for them, you can say, right, you've now met that standard there, that standard there, that standard there, and tick them off. And you'd be surprised how much these kids want to do it, and they want to do the theory stuff, etc.
Yeah, thank you, Howard. Absolutely. So on just coming back to the PowerPoint, there is also the driving syllabus as well. So when you go onto gov.uk, you'll be able to see other sets of national standards. You know, there are ones for cyclists as vulnerable road users. That's also, and that's good for the cyclists themselves and the cycle trainer. So that's also another great one that you can have a look at, because, you know, that is something, vulnerable road users, that could be something which you could be directing your pupils to for some further reading and things on that as well. Like, you could do a whole session on vulnerable road users, so you could look at horse riders, you could look at elderly, disabled, you know, all of those types of vulnerable road users. You could just get them to explore that, look at all of that, put a few questions together, send them a little quiz, and we'll come on to that in a little while. So I think we've had a little look at these ones here. So yeah, and as I say, the bottom bullet point there, use these and the car and light van syllabus, so you can use it as a base for your next few lessons. You should be referring to it anyway, just to make sure that you are completing that syllabus, you've got enough information there, you think, okay, I'm just comparing it against, Howard mentioned a matrix. If you feel like going that brave, then great. If you think, okay, I just need something to kind of maybe just check against as a little bit of a tip sheet, then you can use that syllabus as well. That's also easily available on the gov.uk website. So you can type that into Google. That might be a slightly quicker way, or your search engine, quicker way of you finding it, because gov.uk is a vast place to be poking around if you're not sure what you're looking for. Okay, anything else to add on that at the moment, Howard?
Sorry, I couldn't find the switch. No, it's all right, thanks. It's okay.
He's got to find his mute button. Okay, so perfect. So having a little look at technology now. So there are many free low-cost solutions available. A lot of you will know these already. They say at the moment Zoom is in everyone's living room. That's one of the catchphrases going around at the moment, because people are trying to keep in contact with friends and family. So it's something which a lot of people are using. But there are also other things out there as well. The Facebook Live, WhatsApp, FaceTime, or Skype, and a lot of them are either free or very low cost. So they're just a few ideas. We're not endorsing any of them particularly. They're just some ideas out there that you can use. Obviously, there are lots of paid for, signed for, you can sign up for services as well. But if you're going to want to just do this as more of either a stopgap, or you want to do this, you think, actually, I'm enjoying doing this, my pupils are getting benefit from doing this through this time when you can't see them, and you wanted to carry on, then do something maybe free. Lower the risk to yourselves. You can't be affording to sign up to things like this right now, so use something free to experiment with it a bit, and just to see how it goes, and see what the take up is like, see how you feel about doing things and how your pupils like it as well. So a simple phone call, as we said earlier, will go a long way with your pupils in terms of keeping in touch with them. So you don't always have to do a video call. I know some ADIs aren't don't feel quite as comfortable around doing things like this, because it's new, it's different. And again, if you got some questions, then do let us know. I was talking to one of our members yesterday, who I think's on the call. I'm not going to name names, but on this webinar today, sorry, and they were just saying, what can I use? And I want to do this, and I want to do some webinars and some calls with my pupils, but what do I use? What do I do? So, we just had a conversation around it, sent him a few links. He spent some time yesterday researching and going through it, sent me a lovely email this morning to go, I've nailed it. I've done this, I've found this, and it can do this and it can do that, and it's for free. I'm limited on the time it will allow me. I think it's only up to sort of 30, 40 minutes of a session. Otherwise, then you have to start to pay. But it's got loads of functions on there that you can do. So, there are things around. So just have a poke about and come and ask us if you're not sure. We're not an expert, and I certainly am not an expert in any of this stuff, and I will never profess to be, but we can certainly give you some information. We can discuss it with you, give you some guidance and things like that. And if you've got a specific question, run it by us. That's what we're here for. As I say, another way you could do this is using good old reliable, good old fashioned email. So you could email them with maybe a Word document, asking them to read something, watch a video, point them to something on YouTube that's, you feel that you would have done anyway on a face-to-face lesson, in between lessons perhaps. We've all got our sources of information and places and people that we think, actually, these people over here do some really great stuff. So you can still point them in those. And then, because you're not seeing them, put a few questions together, or arrange a time once they've watched it to then have a call with them and things like that. As we say, keep a structure of learning in place where you possibly can. I understand a lot of your pupils contacted you, and there was a lot to and fro a week or two ago when all of this hit everybody, and your pupils in a lot of cases contacted you to say, hey, I'm not comfortable, I can't carry on because I'm either at risk, or my family member is, or something like that. So and I know that happened as they contacted you, not just you cancelling on them. So they might think they might have gone away, or they might have been a bit quiet. So just give them a little gentle nudge, say, hey, how you doing? Hope everything's well. do you fancy sort of setting up a session that we can continue looking at what we've been doing recently? So a few ground rules and online etiquette just to have a little look at. So if you are going to do anything which involves video and or audio, consider your background noise and any echo. I've chosen to do this. I'm actually working at home, a few of us are, but we can still do everything that we need to do for you. So I've chosen the best room in my house where there's a bit of soft furnishings, not like an echoey kitchen or something like that. So you've got something to absorb sound. Those of you who used to go and eat in like restaurants where it's very clattery, very noisy, you've got to consider sometimes your sound quality might come across a bit like that. So consider that. Other devices nearby might create feedback. You get that awful piercing thing, it goes right through your head, and so just consider other devices nearby. So maybe switch them off or put them further away. Consider who is in your background. So if there's any children in your background, your kids or members of your family that shouldn't be or don't wish to be on the camera, then do consider that. So pop yourself in a corner so no one can see anyone walking behind you, or lock yourself in a room. What is in your background as well, just make sure it's appropriate, and certainly not suggesting that anything would be inappropriate in your homes, absolutely not, but just thinking, just making sure that there's, if you've got the TV on in the background and I don't know, it's some weird program, just consider things like that. I feel like I'm digging myself into a hole here, but just consider things that are in your background. So just making sure. Also ensuring the best connection. Considering plugging your device directly into your router where you can. Sometimes that will give you a best connection. You can have like free apps from App Store, Google Play that can help test your internet speed. So you can help monitor that, see how you're doing. Use your Wi-Fi if your connection and the speed is good. Also, if you're not going to be using Wi-Fi, if you are going to use data or your pupil it's something to just run by them. If they have limited data, then this might eat a lot of that up if you're doing sort of regular calls with them. So just something to bear in mind. And if they can get on some free Wi-Fi or unlimited data, if they have something like that, then that's generally okay. Yeah, so just to mention that point there. So top tip, again, you might find using earphones with a mic. So if you've got like your favorite earphones with that you use for phone calls where you plug in, or AirPods, or anything like that, with a microphone, it might improve your sound quality rather than using the microphone on your device. It can vary. Some inbuilt microphones on the device can be very, very good. I'm just currently using the work laptop at the moment. I haven't got anything plugged in, so it can be a very good sound quality, as you're hopefully hearing at the moment. So, but you can test it in different ways beforehand. So rope in, member of your family, use some of your family that you haven't been able to see, do some calls with them and test it out on them to see, what gives you the best sound quality and what works best. Also, maybe experiment on them a little bit and use some of the functionality of anything that you use. So can you do like a whiteboard, for example, or can you do this, or can you break people into little breakout rooms? And, if you were going to have different people on there. So different ways that you can do. So if you screen share, like I'm doing at the moment, so some services that you use will allow you to share your screen. So you could share a video, you could share anything on there. So, but consider your background. So a bit like hoovering out your car before a lesson, you always will make sure you do that. So it's all clean, it's all clear, it's all lovely. Your cars are always gleaming. So tidy up your desktop, hide any icons into a folder so it's clean and clear. So you could, as an idea, you could take a picture of your training car and have that with the branding on it, and have that as your desktop image for a quick and simple branding idea. So, if you did minimize your screen or anything like that, all they're going to see is one folder with, you could drag everything into it. That's just call it desktop. That's fine. And have a picture of your vehicle on the background, just as a quick idea. Again, it's still a professional context, so wearing clothing is appropriate if you go on camera. So so it's just bear that in mind. Again, I don't want to start digging myself into another hole on that one, but just making sure, because sometimes as well, if you're not sure if you're on the camera or you're not, always assume that you are if you're not sure or you don't intend to be, and just bear that sort of thing in mind. So, and again, we said about that one, to consider who is in your background, or any children or members of the family that shouldn't or don't wish to be on there. Okay, consider what's in your background. Right, okay, covering some old ground, so I think we've got that. Now, let's have a little look at these parents. So, parents are important in the learning to drive process. They provide some informal driver training. So that is, some of them will do private practice with your pupils and help out. Some parents are absolutely brilliant, and they do all of that, and they keep in touch with you, and some less so. Some pupils and parents won't do any private practice at all. And so there's, as we know, we've got a mixture, real mixed bag. Thinking about this with your business hat on, they are drivers themselves who probably need development. Let's face it, we all do, okay? So they have a huge influence on your pupils' attitude, knowledge and drive behaviour. And as we have looked when we've done previous courses, things on this in the past, there has been research that's shown, children, little children, even as early as the age of 3, there's been some information on that to say that they have picking up, 3-year-olds are even picking up attitudes, behaviours. They mimic their parents, of course they do. They mimic people, so they'll pick up on how the parents are driving, and that is instilled in them, and then that becomes their truth. That becomes, this might be what makes a good driver for them, and it might not be what you think is a good driver. So and that's where sometimes we have this little bit of a, we need to bring them into our land in beginning when we're training them. So they often pay fully, or at least contribute towards the lessons. They often make the decisions, and they continue to influence the learner when they become a licence holder, because say that they're the family and they're close family, so they will do. We need to seize the opportunity to develop any drivers. So parents could be a great way of us diversifying what we do. We have talked about this in the past, some time ago, but we thought, it might not be a bad idea to revisit this, just to throw some ideas out there to you, to make you think, okay, well, if I've got a chat or a video call with one of my pupils, and I've got mum and dad in the background as well, if everyone's all all right with that, pupil's okay, then talk to them as well. This is a great opportunity to do that. You might subtly be able to maybe give the parents some tips and advice. They might ask you a question, and then you might be able to very carefully and tactfully start working your way into helping them out a little bit. That could turn into a little product that you could help with them when you're able to go back out. It could even be a theory session that you could do with them. You might even be able to charge a little bit of money for it at the moment. So, it's certainly worth considering. Obviously, we know parents, they need to, especially when they're accompanying, they need to update their knowledge, understanding, skills prior to getting involved with the company practice. They must do, but whether they do or not, again, mixed bag. They must be aware of certain things like the national standards for these, the ones that we've mentioned. Know this exists, firstly, because a lot of them won't, and plus how it can benefit them as a driver as well as their children who are learning. So it's finding out, speaking to parents, finding out, if they do ask you stuff, great. If there's any particular kind of knowledge gaps that they're indicating or anything they might want some help on, then that could be a great thing. You could say, hey, look, in the national standards for cars and light vans, I'll forward you the link to this, or I'll forward you a snippet from it, or have a chat and discuss it with them live. Then you can say, your question relates to this part, so we need to have a little look around here to kind of help you a little bit more with that. Again, a company practice, they need to understand legalities. Again, you could provide them, you could maybe, and again, some of you might have already done this, but if in case you haven't, it could be an idea for you. Create them a little handout of all that. So if you do's and don'ts, these are the legal requirements for if you are going to be accompanying a provisional licence holder. Again, there's lots of information on gov.uk, official information with that. Always give us a bell or give us an email if you want some help with that. And give them a little handout. You could do a few like a do's and don'ts list. So it's just so quick, simple, nothing too taxing, nothing too onerous that they need to spend time and, you know, go through, but just have you considered this? If you've got an automatic, if the parents have got an automatic license, then, you know, you think, well, and the people, their son or daughter is taking a lessons in a manual, then are they allowed to then supervise them? You know, it's things like that. So they might need a little bit more guidance around there. Now, in terms of private practice, now some of you might have been asked about this from your pupils or from parents, and we've had a call yesterday and with DVSA, and the guidance or the advice is no, private practice shouldn't be going ahead. In line with government guidance on COVID-19, the guidance is clear for what you're allowed to go out, where you're allowed to go out of your house, and there's 3 or 4 bullet points that we're allowed to go out. And going out, even if it's the same members of your family, so the risk of contamination is low, but you've got to consider, should anything happen on that route, as you're out, you know, that's extra policing that people need to, you know, that those services need to come out and, you know, guide you back indoors. If you get pulled up, you could risk a fine. We've seen some reports on the TV being fined for being out, and so from that point of view, and also, you know, should you be unlucky enough to have a breakdown or a puncture or something, you've got to consider, if you do need to call out the emergency services, then it's, you know, there's a potential risk there as well for them and you. So stay indoors. Private practice, accompanied practice with mum and dad, stops at this time. That's the advice that we've had from DVSA as well. So you can say to, you know, feel confident with saying to your pupils and parents who are asking that stops, okay? But you can help them online, and you can help them in many other ways. And as we know, parent and ADI, as much as we can do, establish that good rapport, that good communication. So quick chat after a lesson. I'll put in brackets where possible, because it's not always, to discuss the next progress and goals. So parents are so important. Give them the lowdown. So there are shared logbooks, and there is a new one, that link there, for the pupil, the instructor, and the parent to record private practice. Clearly not now, but when they're allowed back out and everyone is, then that's when you can use that. But again, that could be something, a link, or you could download it and email it to them, tell them where to find it, and that shows them if they are going, when they are allowed to go out private, you do the private practice again, then they can fill out that logbook, and on that sheet it will say, you know, any questions, write them here that they might have for you. So that mum and dad or mum and son have gone out, done some private practice, and some questions are flagged up in that session, and they want to get them clarified with you. So that's where that log comes in, because they can write down what they've been, share that with you, so you know as well, you're in the loop, and then that helps you with your next lesson planning as well. And then any questions that come up, they can then record it on there. Great for them to sit in on lessons, yes, we know. we try and encourage that as best as we can, and continue to do so. Yeah, so offering a helpline for parents for issues on learning to drive. So that could be something else. You know, you could offer a helpline, you could offer like an email, a dedicated email that you could set up, that the parents could ask for any queries about this. You could look into, you know, looking at setting something like that up at the moment, perhaps. And as we said, a regular meeting post-lesson, quick 5-minute chat to update progress and goals. We want to keep the pupils and the parents focused on lifelong learning and learning beyond the test. We understand that their goal is they want to acquire their full driving license, and we get that, but it's after the driving test and after they've got that, and as we know, that's when the stats are very clear and they show when the people get into the most bother. So that's where we want to be heading with them. So always keep them focused on that lifelong the test is just another step in that lifelong learning in their driving career, and that should be something which, and I'm sure most of us do, just to reiterate the point again, is something which at the very beginning of learning, or even on your website, even as they're browsing before they're a customer of yours, to say, I'm going to help you, and I can help you with, you know, driving safe for life, DVSA's catchphrase there. So in order to do that, though, we've got to go through some training, and there will be a couple of tests along the way, probably the theory test and a practical driving test, but then they're just things to go through on the way. Your goal is way down for the whole lifetime, so always keep focused on that. So again, if you are engaging a bit more with the parents at this time, then, you know, that's where we want to be getting there, you know, getting them to look at. Package the deal. Again, business hat on. Training for mum and dad or pupil. Can you offer them any theory? Can you offer them any practical? A refresher practice. Now, again, some questions that have been asked, not necessarily on the session, because as I say, I will come to questions in a moment. I can't view them at the moment, but something which we've been asked as DIA and through parents and ADIs is, I think it's more from the parent point of view and from the pupil point of view, that they're saying, well, look, I've got my test, or I had my test booked. I was about to take my test. So when we can go back out in the car again, do I need, I won't need any more lessons because I was at that standard. But the thing is, they haven't been driving, or they shouldn't have been, and they haven't been driving under the watchful eye of a professional ADI. So as we know, between lesson to lesson, maybe week to week, sometimes, you know, we can spot when they might have been going out with mum and dad. And I don't mean that in a bad way, because any additional practice they can do is a great thing. But sometimes there are little telltale signs in their driving. They adapt their driving ever so slightly. I've had experience of this where my pupil hadn't said to me that they were going to go out and do any private practice, but they have done. And I know that because they started to change down. One of them started, it was a bit odd, changed to third gear every time they approached the junction. Why third gear? When I, you know, mentioned it, tactfully went there, broached the subject. Okay, I've noticed, you know, a couple of changes in your driving. Noticed you're changing down to third gear. Was there a need for that back there? In my opinion, no, there wasn't, because we were just crossing a junction. You know, the light maybe had gone a green traffic light, and we were able just to continue. But they might have changed gear or done something a little bit out of the ordinary, or out of character, or something that I hadn't trained them, that it wasn't relevant at that time. So it was a little bit, you know, out of character, as I say. So, and when asked them, they say, oh yeah, well, my mum or dad or someone told me to do that. And okay, that's interesting. So what are the reasons for doing that? Oh, because that's how they were taught. So, you know, it carries on, and what their beliefs are very strong, very influential with their kids, and so their kids are carrying that along there with them as well. And obviously, we're just trying in our best ways we can to instill how things should be done and why. If they understand why and how, which this is, you know, what you do explain with them, then they'll understand that actually that's possibly not needed. You know, your hands at that junction should have both been on the steering wheel for because you are crossing over a junction, and it's more safe. It's much more of a safe approach to have two hands on the steering wheel. Yes, reduce your speed and be vigilant. Maybe even put your thumb over the horn, just ready. You know, you never know, just in case. But a gear change back there wasn't always necessary. So it's just things like that, and you know, it's trying to kind of in this session get to those parents why you might have a bit more of an opportunity to do so. So it is a tough job, though. I'll give you that. I feel that, and I've been there. But again, have a chat with us. If you want to give us an email, give us a call. Happy to discuss it. So as this, we're just going over this ground again. So consider creating a new product. Anyone in that household, you could turn their driving related questions and issues possibly into a new income stream. Could be now, or it could even be when we are able to go back out and, you know, live life as normal again. So, you know, don't write that off. Do consider it and have some thoughts around how you might do that. Okay, so yeah, so engaging with the parents, pupils, you might be able to have a chat with parents too and take discussions from potential training from them. Now, at the end of this session, when we end this webinar in a few minutes, what we will ask you to do is to create a little feedback form for us. That'd be great. So let us know whether you thought it was, you know, any good ideas, or, you know, any ideas of what you would like. We've got some webinars every week lined up for you, and more of those will be coming out soon. But if there's anything that you particularly, you know, want us to chat about, then tell us. So there is a little feedback form on the end, and when you've filled that out, you'll have access to a couple of handouts that we've created for you that you can download off the back of this webinar. One of them is just something which you could send to your pupils where they were just about to start lessons with you right at the beginning of their learning. They've not driven a car before, and so one is about the DSSM. So setting the car up for them. So it's a few slides as a PDF that you can download. You can have a little look at. It's free for you. You can send it to them or not, or you can use it and adapt it and make your own one up if you would prefer. It's just an idea that we've had as something to give you for no cost, as a use it as is. It's perfectly decent, or you know, to create your own one and use it, tear it apart, use it as a basis. It's your call. So that's something which you could do, and that's just to get the ideas rolling on that. So that is for DSSM. You could do it for, you know, more the controls if you've got pupils that are around there or about to be, or have just had that lesson as a refresher. You could do it for move off and stop, finding somewhere safe, convenient and legal, you know, just breaking it down and just sending a few bits out, a few bullet points, a few lessons, a few pointers, top tips, advice on there as well. So just something for you to consider. There is also another little handout which we thought, again, it might help get mum and dad a bit involved and give you that, open that door a little bit for you. Might make it easier, might not, but we thought let's try it. And it's a little quiz, and it's family fun night. So if your pupil has got hold of it, you can send it to them. You can download it, send it to them. Then mum and dad could sit there with their learners, with the young drivers who are currently learning, have learned recently, or are thinking about it. So, you know, it could be for anyone really. Who's got the best knowledge about driving? That's it. So what we want to do is not create any family rifts or living room arguments, but well, it might, but we hope not. It's designed to be nice, but, you know, have a little bit of healthy competition between the parents and the pupils. Who knows a little bit more? Who knows more about these things? And again, we've sent you 5 questions, multi-choice on different headings, you know, time driving, rural driving, all those sorts of areas that we know that we need to focus on as well. And there are about 4 or 5 different subject topic headings and some Q&As on there. So have a little look, use it as is if you want to, or as I said with the last one, make your own one up, doesn't matter, or choose not to do anything with it at all. But it's just some ideas for you on there. So again, we do like our national standards around here. So reiterating all of those. So okay, so as I was saying, this is the family quiz night. I will just run through this quickly. So it's available. Where it says you can find this on our DA Academy, I do apologise. That I think you might be able to find it on there, but certainly if you fill out the little feedback form at the end, you'll certainly be able to get it on there at the end of this webinar and download those on there as well. Okay. One more idea. You could get creative and produce quick how-to guides for your pupils for the next lesson. So as I've mentioned, I've jumped ahead of myself. So you can download the DSSM one. It's just slides like this with bullet points and just a few things. There are a couple of top tips I've chucked in there and things. And the top tip is, one of them is, you should never sit too close to the steering wheel. Ask your driving instructor about that. So I'm trying to sort of, get them to get some dialogue going with you, to point them, to signpost them back to you so they talk about it with you. So just something a little bit more ahead of their lesson. So as I say, you can do this. I've done it for DSSM just as a start. You can do it for anything that you want. Just there is no limits. It's just how creative you want to be. Right. So I know we've got a few questions in there. So Howard,
we've got a couple here. Two general questions. First one I'll answer is Richard's. Richard's asked, will these slides be available to review after?
Yes, we are recording the session. So they won't be available immediately after, because we might need to just edit, top and tail them ever so slightly, but to make them the best version we can for you. But this will be available in the next few days on our Academy website, diaacademy.co.uk, along with all our other webinars on there. So there's others on there that we've pre-recorded, so you have access to them. You can't use your membership or your driving.org membership login for Academy. You need to sign up to Academy. I want to just make that clear to everyone. So if you go to our Academy website, diaacademy.co.uk, go on there and sign up. You have to sign up for that one to access certain things on there.
Okay. Next question I've got is from Peter, which is more general. Technical car question. Is it okay to take your car for a drive just to keep it running well? The answer to that is no, it's not, unfortunately, because it is not an essential journey. We've had a few issues over the country. 3 or 4, I think it's 4 instructors now, have actually been stopped by the police while they're training and told they were not doing an essential journey, because, believe it or not, driving instructors are not on the essential worker list.
We're working on that though. So
we're working on that at the moment. We're with the Department for Transport at the moment on doing that. But at this very moment in time, we can't take cars out just to run them in, because it's regarded as a non-essential journey, and therefore you must keep your vehicles at home or wherever you've got them parked. Okay. That's the only questions we've got at the moment.
Yeah, it's right. Good questions. Thank you, guys. Yeah, that last one is awkward, isn't it? I mean, I suppose the only other way around that is if you are needing to excuse me, sorry, go to the supermarket, and you have to drive there, for example, then you'd need a car to go and do that. So for those of you who are able still to pop out and do something like that, then that's really that. And if you need to drive to collect medication or take supplies, maybe to drop them off at doorsteps or care for vulnerable members of your family, then that's the only time that you should be on the road. So that's if any of those apply legitimately. Otherwise, as Howard says, you could be looking at a fine, and you guys really don't need that right now.
Thomas has come through with a thing here, which is, let's get this out of the way, guys. If critical workers are still allowed to take driving tests, are we not allowed to still train them? What's happened here, let's just go through this. The key workers were set up, the driving test centres were closed, and slots left available by DVSA volunteer examiners for key workers. On the list of key workers, driving instructors do not appear. At this very moment in time, which, as Olivia and I alluded to earlier on, we're trying to work out with the Department for Transport. Driving instructors are not allowed to train anybody in their car. Now, there's a problem here, because if you were to go and train Ocado drivers or Sainsbury's drivers or anyone from the Ministry of Defence, your journey to site to train those people would be an essential journey. And your training would be essential because you're training in a commercial vehicle for essential key workers. but training anybody in your car is not regarded as an essential journey. And that's why I alluded to the 4 driving instructors who have been fined by the police £30 each for doing lessons and were told to go back home because their journeys were not essential. Now, that was all over the country. It's not just in one place. That was spread around the country.
The
We
fine,
have got a problem with this at the moment.
isn't the fine £60 but 30 if you pay it in 14 days?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, so you're looking at 60, guys, unless it's, you know, you pay it within that time. So bear that in mind as well. And then that fine doubles, isn't it? If it was a repeat offence. And
Effective repetition is £1,000 fine.
well, okay, it starts getting into silly money. So as we're saying, you know, we are working with DVSA, Department for Transport, and DIA and you know, NAS to try and get all of this sorted, to work out who, you know, can ADRs be key workers, because of there is a test. So you would assume that there would need to be training. But what we have to do is filter out who that training can be for, and we've really got to put some strong filters on. It can't just be for someone who, you know, they were going off to university and they need to drive. Unfortunately, that's, you know, that can't happen, and everyone understands how seriously inconvenient that is, but it's not essential to keeping the country running right now. So those people, essential to keeping the country running, those are the ones that are able to get these tests right now. But even then, even if you flash your NHS ID, it depends what you're doing. So the whole thing is really, really complex. So we're working with everyone to try and find our way through the woods with this one. We've made quite a bit of progress, and we hope to have something, you know, very, very soon for this. So that's all we can say for now. Just stay tuned, guys.
Got another question here from Katrina. Once the recently cancelled theory tests are rescheduled, will they be sitting the new theory test? At the moment, our understanding is yes, they will be. The new theory test, I believe, comes in this month. So when the test centres open up, we understand, as we understand at the moment, they will be sitting the new theory test.
So just to clarify, the new theory test is at the end where you had the case study questions. They are going to be turning those into video questions. So they'll be watching some video clips rather than reading the case study, to make it more accessible for everybody. So if anyone had, you know, difficulties with understanding and reading all of that case study information and then answering the questions on it, they'll be watching a video now. Everyone will be. So that's what we mean by the new theory test. And information, I believe, is on gov.uk about that. So,
question here from Richard about sawing a vehicle. Yes, it might be possible to saw your vehicle. That's a statutory off-road notification for your vehicle if it's not being used, but that does mean it cannot be used for anything. So you can't even go to the shops with it. You can't do anything at all, because sawn will invalidate your insurance if it's driven on the road and caught by a camera or stopped by the police. So if you think about stopping your car insurance, you'll be a bit of a bother, because if your vehicle is sawned, it still has to be insured. So it doesn't really save you any money at all. So to sawn your vehicle just puts a statutory off-road notification to say your vehicle won't be used. So really and truly, there's not really any use in putting the vehicle under sawn.
okay. Thank you. Any other questions, guys?
There's nothing on here. I'm just looking in the chats at the moment.
So while you're having a look on there, Howard,
just want to confirm, Andre, if I may, please. Andre just wants me to reiterate, so as driving instructors, we cannot train anyone, even key workers. Andre, just to clarify, you should not be training anybody in your car, even key workers, because of what we said earlier on. Yes, it's a bit of an oxymoron when the DVSA are opening up tests for key workers, but because we are not on the key worker list, we are not able to train them without risk of being prosecuted or being fined by the police. We are classed as a non-essential workers unless we are dealing with the frontline people like the distribution of food, the Ministry of Defence, or health workers. There is a bit of an area where you might be able to get away with at the moment, and that is where an organisation has insisted that someone gets trained. And I had a phone call about this last week, and what the organisation did is went down to the police, to a local police station, and said these guys need training. If we got, this is motorcyclists actually, said if we went to an ATB to get these guys trained, are they likely to be pulled up by the police for being on bikes and doing training, because no one's going to know whether they're key workers or not. And the police has actually said if they can have a bib put on them to say key workers under training, then they'll be okay to do it on the bikes. But they had to carry identification, have a letter of authority from the company they're working for. So if anyone did stop them, there was authentication. But the problem is, this is rather sporadic, and the police are taking their own stance, really constabulary by constabulary. And that's why I'm saying that some of the guys have already been fined by some police authorities for being out and regarded as unnecessary journeys. The NASP, which is the National Association Strategic Partnership, have come together and said, as an industry, we shouldn't be training anybody at all at the moment. BSM, AA, and I believe LDC have pulled all of their instructors off the road and told them no training is to take place until further notice. And really, we advise you to do the same. Now, we're also getting questions about badges being renewed. I had a talk yesterday with the deputy registrar about badge renewals. Badge renewals should take place as normal, because if you hold on for the 12-month extension, which is you don't need to replace your badge within 12 months of it expiring, but if you don't renew it, you can't train anybody for reward, makes your DBS out of date at renewal. Now, when they do your DBS, they send you the details 6 months in advance. So if you do it too quickly, your DBS must not be older than 6 months at the time of re-registration of your badge. So if you delay your renewal of your badge, your DBS could expire at 6 months.
Howard, just to add on to that, yeah. So I think the DVSA, I'm choosing my words carefully here, because I also had a chat with him, and they've said, look, if they ADIs need to contact the PADI email, so P for Peter, ADI, PADI at dvsa.gov.uk. Email those guys, because that goes straight to the registrar's team if you've got questions, because they will look at everyone on their own merits, and they'll make, sometimes they might have to use more of a common sense approach with it. So we can't promise or speak for them, but we can say to you guys, if you've got questions around this, send Paddy an email. So as I say, that goes to the registrar's team. They're not at Nottingham, they're all remote working. Badges can't be sent out at the moment because there's no one there to send them out. But if you've got questions about expires, or I'm going to be needing this to go and do this, then drop them an email and clear it with them. Is that okay? And we've had another question from Tom. I don't know if you saw that one, Howard.
Mm-hmm.
Are critical workers allowed to take tests in their own cars? So I don't see why not. It's that I haven't actually been asked that one directly before, but you can take your test in your own car as long as the car is suitable for the test, as the regulations state on gov.uk website. In these times, I don't see what much difference is between using your own people using their own vehicle for the test, and as it would do under normal circumstances. If you've got
as long as it meets MTV, as long as it meets the MTV regulations, it should be okay.
Which is minimum test vehicle requirements. So that's capable of doing 62 miles an hour, adjustable head restraints for the examiner, all of those sorts of things, no spare wheel. So those regs are on gov.uk under practical, I think it's under practical test, or using your own car for a test. So I haven't heard otherwise at the moment. And I can't think of what additional, as long as it meets those standards, I can't think of what additional issues there would be for the examiner or for the pupil in terms of their own exposure to risk, that if you used your own car or it was the ADI's car. If a pupil is going to use their own car, then, tell them to, obviously clean it as best they can, and the examiner will have their own measures that they are putting in place to protect themselves and yourselves as well. But it might be worth just mentioning to, make sure it's recently been cleaned from that point of view. It sounds
okay. Tom has actually sort of reiterated his question here. He said, what I'm asking is, if they are not allowed to if we're not allowed to take them, then does that mean that we can only take them in their own car? The problem you've got there, Tom, is you are breaking the distance regulations. 2 people in a car are likely to get stopped. That's the trouble you have. If they were to go with a member of their own family, then that isn't so much of an issue.
But they should be going out doing private practice with mum and dad. So it is such a complicated. There are more questions than answers on this at the moment, and all we can say is don't go out and do any of this work at the moment. And if we are working hard behind the scenes with all these organisations that we've said to try and get a way through this, and to really sift out the actual critical workers, and not just someone who feels that, hey, I work for this organisation and that they're trying to get through, because that doesn't conform to government guidelines in terms of they're not essential to running the country. So
what I can say now, though, is if any of you are LGV trainers, 2 days ago the government relaxed the restrictions on the movement of any goods. So anything to do with logistics distribution is now allowed to be driven, whereas before it wasn't classed as key worker, it now is. So if you are LGV trainer, there's probably a little bit more work for you in that sector than there is now in the category B sector. So it might be worth you exploring that if you have the LGV qualifications and the correct details to be able to train for other companies. I'd have a go at looking into that if you need it for income.
Okay. All right. So if there's any more questions, ask them now, but we're going to start to wrap up. So I'm going to carry on and just start to wind down the session now. So there are, as I say, short online courses. We have made some of them free for you. So have a little look at our website, diacademy.co.uk. So do check it out. The recorded webinars will be on there as well, and this one will be added to that in the next few days. And thank you for attending. Just to remind you, in case you didn't hear it at the start, we've got 2 webinars planned for next week, double bubble for you. We've got one Thursday, one Friday. They're both at 11 a.m. at the moment. The Thursday one is about very, very different and to what we've ever done before, mindfulness. A bit of a coping strategy and a bit of a way of helping us to seek a few moments during the day when everyone's got so many pressures, stresses, financial worries and all sorts on their mind. We've all got to keep our head above water and keep ourselves as healthy as we can. That's mental health as well, because the cracks are showing and will show. So that's what we're going to do. It's only going to be for around half an hour or so, and we're going to be doing it with a lady called Tor. She's lovely, and she's going to be just guiding you through a few things. We'll have a few bits of information out, and we'll advertise that, so you'll be able to sign up for that. And as I say, it's very different to what we've done before, and we really hope that you can be on that, because again, we can't promise that there's not learning outcomes as such from things like that. It's more that you know, you take away what you want to and what you can from it. And we understand it's not for everybody. Some people think, oh my goodness, you know, what a load of beep. But and I know, you know, some people don't see any value, but come along, you might be surprised. And I know a lot of you do practice things like that as well. So, you know, it might be a great thing for you to do. If you like it, we look to doing some more stuff on that subject with Tor in the future. So, you know, your feedback is very, very important. So, and that will shape what we do and what we give for you. The other one will be our CEO, Carly Brookfield Howard, who's in the background answering all the questions, doing a grand job, and myself next Friday, Good Friday. Who knew Easter was so near, and everyone forgot about all that. So next Friday, 11 o'clock, and we'll be talking about risks, and not just on-road risk, as we, you know, that's where our minds automatically go, but business risks. So things like, you know, your business has gone overnight. So a lot of us are in that situation now. Carly will be able to provide lots of information. She's got a great business brain, and so we're going to be doing a bit of a team effort on that one next Friday. So you can sign up on our website, diacademy.co.uk, for that one, the same as you've done for this one. And we really look forward to seeing you then. Anything else before we go, or is that okay to wind down for everybody?
No, there's nothing else coming up here. There's a lot of people saying thank you. It's a pleasure. That's what we're here for. And everyone's saying that they seem to have going to be taking away some tools that we've given them, and also ideas as well. So that's great, guys. That's what we're here for.
That's good. Thank you, everyone. As I say, we're not professing to know the answers, because no one does. But what we're doing, you know, hopefully this session, it just kind of got you thinking about things that maybe you wouldn't normally think of, because it's not normally under your nose like this. So this is an opportunity. Let's try and keep positive with this. This is an opportunity to think and do something a little bit different, to try and keep your pupils engaged, and you might be able to, you know, as I say, charge something for it as well, if it's a you know, a nice structured session. If you've got any questions with that, email support@driving.org, and don't forget, in a moment when I end this session, to fill out the feedback form. That will then give you access to those 2 downloads, that DSSM that you can send out to your pupils, or butcher it, make your own one. That's entirely up to you. And also the family quiz night thing. So hopefully that won't end up in too many rows. But hope it's designed to be a bit of fun. So again, if you like it, great, send it. If you want to use bits of it, do that. If you don't, and you want to make your own one, and it's because it's giving you some ideas, fantastic. That's what we want. Okay then, everyone, we're going to sign off now. So stay safe, stay well, stay in touch, and keep out and look out on our website, drive.org.
Very quick question, Olivia. Somebody, Tasneem, where will the feedback form be?
Oh, that's my doorbell, sorry. The feedback form will be, sorry, I'm now distracted. Sorry. The feedback form will be bloody doorbell. The feedback form will be, when I end this webinar, you will be invited to download the feedback form, and then once you've done that, then you'll have access to those 2 handouts.
Okay.
Hopefully that makes it clear. All right. So again, if you couldn't access it for any reason, tell us, and we will send it to you in another way. We'll get round it, so don't worry. Okay. Is that okay for everyone? And all right, so thank you everyone in DIA and Howard in the background, and answering the questions, and we will see you soon. Stay safe, everyone.